Sam Bowie, Lebanon, Pennsylvania.
When I come out of high school in 1979, I had 900 scholarship offers to pretty much attend any school that I pleased.
Number 31 at forward, 7-1 from Lebanon, Pennsylvania, Sam Bowie.
They got something there! Blocked by Bowie!
7-1, he's an intimidator, he blocks shots, and he can shoot it. You'll hear a lot about Sam Bowie before it's over.
Kentucky has Bowie on the injured list as it starts the campaign, so the Wildcats will have to go at least partway without the franchise.
Now this looks a little bit like Sam's bone. It's not a true fracture. We don't know much about it because we haven't seen many like it.
Sam Bowie, a very articulate, bright man who has battled back from 2 years of inactivity.
Portland selects Sam Bowie, University of Kentucky.
Back to the drive, alley to Bowie. Drexler inside to Bowie. Block Bowie.
What an incredible athletic play by Sam Bowie.
I think that we've answered the question as to the wisdom of drafting Sam Bowie. You said at the very top that you want to go with the big man, and it looks like they have a good big man.
Well, you hate to see anybody being carried out on a stretcher. You hate to see Sam Bowie.
Broken legs costing him a huge chunk of what should have been the crown of his career.
Well, you just wonder how long Sam Bowie is going to hold up.
Oh, the rejection by Sam Bowie.
Another good look by Sam Bowie.
Sam got the stroke going, doesn't he?
Pointer.
Sam challenges the big guy and a pretty reverse move by Sam Bowie.
If that had really not happened to him, I think he would have been a bona fide star in this league.
Let's jog your memory. It's the mid-70s in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. There's a young kid making a name for himself on the basketball court. And we're talking young. 13-year-old Sam Bowie is helping Lebanon Junior High capture a Section 2 title. This was only the beginning. By the start of his freshman year at Lebanon High, Bowie stands 6'5". Everything was about to change in small-town PA. The Cedars were nothing to write home about. Until now, Sam Bowie transformed them into a contender. Come his junior year, the big man was head and shoulders above the competition. Every night was a new scoring escapade. You didn't get rebounds with Bowie around. And that was if he even let you get a shot off. Coaches knew what to do with most of the Cedars, but they had no idea how to stop Sam Bowie. He could do everything, yet he never did too much. His value came not only from what he could do, but also what he knew not to do. What he and the Cedars did a lot of was win. It was the greatest team in school history. It was almost perfect. But a 1-point loss in the state final meant there was still unfinished business for Bowie before his high school career was over. Much like his height, basketball was in Sam Bowie's genes. His father Ben was a semi-pro player in his own right, and was 6'10", so Sam surpassing 7 feet wasn't too surprising. But something else that seemed to be in his genes was brittle bones. According to his father, his childhood was filled with broken arms and broken legs. His bones were constantly growing, and they didn't have time to strengthen. You can't really prepare for that. Something else you can never truly prepare for is pressure. Bowie's future was full of it. He was nationally known going into his senior year, and nationally coveted. Any and every program you can think of was vying for the services of the Pennsylvania product. But Big Sam was ready for it. Growing up in Lebanon, he had never really had to work all that hard to dominate on the basketball court. A top college program would bring a challenge, and that's what Sam wanted. But all that was a year away. This year's challenge was capturing a state title, and Bowie picked up where he left off last year. Another season of dominance for the superstar senior. The spotlight followed Bowie everywhere he went. He was the subject of national news. Gyms were packed to see the teenager they were dubbing the next Wilt. The best high school big man since Moses Malone, and he wasn't disappointing. On the back of Bowie, the Cedars remained one of the best in the state, but the big man could only carry them so far. And an early elimination in the state playoffs brought an unceremonious end to Bowie's high school career. But it didn't change the fact that he was arguably the best player in America. If there was one recruit comparable to Sam Bowie, it was Harrisonburg's Ralph Sampson. And according to the National Association of Basketball Coaches, Bowie was the superior player. However, when the two met in the Capital Classic, Sampson embarrassed the Lebanon product. It was one of a few underwhelming All-Star Game performances from Bowie. It added some question marks to his top recruit status. But at that point, he wasn't a recruit. He was committed. The University of Kentucky won the Sam Bowie sweepstakes. One of the most publicized recruiting battles in high school history had concluded. The big man was on his way to Lexington, and for any future recruits coming out of Lebanon, they could thank Sam Bowie for the exposure that the small town had never had before. It was 1979. If you had a big man to build around, that's what you were going to do, and Kentucky had gotten one of the best in the country. But Bowie wasn't your typical big man. For one, he wasn't all that big when he stepped on the scale. His playstyle made him different too. In high school, he was celebrated for his shooting range. His coach actually wanted him to spend more time down low. He also had the coordination to handle the ball and find the open man. And Bowie had said it himself. He didn't get as much joy in scoring as he did in making the right play and getting his teammates involved. But Kentucky didn't recruit Bowie to be a passer. He was the future, joining the present, a team led by All-American guard Kyle Macy. And he would have to play more traditional. Kentucky didn't need more shooting. They needed a presence down low, and that's where the barely 200-pound Bowie would be setting up shop. This was the challenge he wanted, and he met it head on. 22 points and 17 rebounds in his very first collegiate game. The season progressed, and the freshman looked good.
In the Bowie, bang!
He was very skinny, but he was so agile, flashing to the hoop and finishing lob after lob. Then, on the defensive end, Bowie's rim protection made him an intimidator.
Bowie has been a much more of a force blocking shot. Opposition shooting only 43% against Kentucky. A lot of the good percentage shots, the inside ones, have been rejected by Bowie.
Now, there was a lot of room for improvement. Bowie wasn't scoring at all like he had in high school. He told fans that they should temper their expectations. His inside game was a work in progress, and even when he did get the ball inside, the defense would collapse to slow him down, but not as much as he slowed himself down. It was hard to stay in the flow of the game when you're always in foul trouble. But for now, he was still the best freshman in the SEC, and in the long run, Big Blue had something special to look forward to.
There was a lot of publicity during the recruiting time about Sam Bowie, and I would think you'd have to say that at 7'1", he is a definite long-term threat for the Wildcats and for all college basketball. He shows some great possibility.
Kentucky went on a 12-game win streak after the Duke loss, which included a win over top-ranked Indiana. And in the SEC, they were the team to beat. 15 wins and a clutch Kyle Macy shot in the season finale was good for the regular season title.
Kyle Macy, Kentucky's All-American, puts the lid on as time runs out in overtime.
However, the conference tournament wasn't the same result. They made it to the final and took on LSU, yet they came out on the losing end. It still didn't change the fact that the Wildcats were one of the premier teams in the country, and their national championship dreams began with Florida State in round 2. Bowie finished up with a double-double and a few rejections, and Kentucky finished with an easy win. Next up was Duke. And just like their season had started, it ended with a loss to the Blue Devils. And the second-team all-conference Bowie closed out year 1 in Lexington with averages of about 13 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game. Bowie kept busy over the summer. The 19-year-old was a member of the U.S. Olympic national team, the youngest team in U.S. history, except they wouldn't make it to the Olympics. The US was one of many countries to boycott due to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, so instead of playing other countries, the Olympic team went on a national tour. They traveled to different US cities and played NBA All-Star teams, dubbed the Gold Medal Series. The national team went 5-1 with Bowie emerging as a top player. Even future Hall of Famer Bob Lanier saw the potential. Bowie was going to be great. He was just glad that he'd be out of the league before Sam gets there. So that's a nice confidence boost for the soon-to-be sophomore. And when he got back to campus, he hit the weight room. He put on about 25 pounds. He needed it. Bowie was going to have a lot more responsibility in 81. Kentucky was counting on a big step forward from the big man in the size 16s. It was a new-look team in Kentucky. A few starters had graduated, including Kyle Macy. The experienced team from last year was no more. It was time for the young guys. Aside from senior Fred Cowan, the starting lineup was a quartet of sophomores. Derek Horde, Charles Hurt, Dirk Minifield, and the man in the middle, Sam Bowie. Bowie made a huge sophomore jump. He jumped higher than most of his defenders.
Pass to Bowie, sensational.
He wasn't getting pushed around as much down low. He wasn't deferring on shots. He was Kentucky's star and he was playing like it. Their leading scorer, their leading rebounder, and one of the best shot blockers in the nation.
Great block by Bowie. What a play. Holy mackerel. Blocked by Bowie. Beautiful play.
The Wildcats were a tough out. They were young and they were winning, oftentimes on the back of Bowie. They did have their growing pains, but they were in the top 10 pretty much all season. And going into the season finale, they had the chance to play spoiler.
The LSU Tigers are ranked number 2 in the country. They are trying for their 27th win in a row. They have already wrapped up the Southeast Conference regular season championship. Today they try to become the first team in 25 years to go through the conference season unbeaten. But they'll have to do it in Lexington against the Kentucky Wildcats.
An SEC showdown with conference history on the line. LSU had already ran through Kentucky earlier, but the Cats didn't roll over.
Derek Horde, a tough shot.
Bowie only had 11 points in the game, but every point was needed.
Bowie, the fadeaway, good!
He scored a clutch bucket late to put the Cats up 4.
Bowie, got it!
LSU brought it to within 2, but Bowie made sure that's as close as they would get.
Blocked by Bowie, and Verderber has it! Kentucky wins it!
The block sealed it. Kentucky ended LSU's 26-game win streak and gave them their first SEC defeat. The Wildcats were riding high, and you were expecting them to take that momentum into the conference tournament. But then again, maybe not. One game and they were out. At least they'd be able to redeem themselves with an NCAA tournament run. But they wouldn't do that either. First game against UAB was their last game of the tournament. Bowie had 8 points on 25% shooting, a terrible end to an otherwise excellent season from the sophomore. Bowie finishing with averages of about 17.5 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game. Rough way to end it, but Sam Bowie was among the nation's elite, a second-team All-American and a finalist for the Naismith Player of the Year. The improvement from freshman to sophomore was exactly what you wanted to see. He was just 20 years old, and the sky was the limit.
Kentucky has Bowie on the injured list as it starts the campaign, so the Wildcats will have to go at least partway without the franchise.
The season was set to start, and the Wildcats were without their star. Bowie had been dealing with leg pain since last season, but he just chalked it up to wear and tear. Yet come summertime, it was only getting worse.
At first I thought it was shin splints. I got the picture taken and there was a stress fracture.
Stress fractures aren't new injuries, so recovery should be simple enough. Except Bowie's fractured tibia was different.
Now this looks a little bit like Sam's bone. The best I can describe it, looks a little bit like a wormhole in a piece of wood. It's not a true fracture. We don't know much about it because we haven't seen many like it.
Head coach Joe B. Hall could barely articulate just how big of a loss this would be for Kentucky.
We had a lot of special plays for him. A player of his ability and his size figured in just about everything we did, and we're certainly going to miss him.
And his recovery wasn't all that simple. The healing process wasn't as quick as anyone would have liked. Next thing you knew, and he had missed the entire season. Even worse for Bowie was that he probably needed basketball more than ever. During that same summer, he had lost his dad, so he was recovering from a lot of pain, and the following season couldn't come soon enough. The season ends and the excitement for the next season begins. The return of Sam Bowie, joining new star big man Mel Turpin. This was going to be Kentucky's year. But by late March, Bowie is back in the hospital. This time it's bone spurs in his opposite foot. Yet it wasn't a major concern. Get the surgery now and be ready for next season. Then his legs started acting up again. More pain and more swelling. By early August, he was back in a cast. Wear it for 6 weeks, and he'll be ready for the season. The exact same prognosis as last year. Just like last year, it wasn't healing properly, so he finally opted for surgery. A bone graft was hoped to be the long-term solution, but in the short term, it was just like last year. Bowie spent the entire season on the sideline. Two years lost to injury. Sam Bowie had every reason to feel sorry for himself, but he didn't. It was a chance to reflect, a chance to make changes, and all of this adversity was nothing he couldn't handle. The physical pain, the surgeries, the rehab, none of it compared to losing his father. And ultimately, he was glad it happened to him and not someone else, because he was strong enough to push through. And finally, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Going into the fall of 1983, Sam Bowie was practicing with the team, and this time there were no setbacks. Kentucky opened the season against Louisville, and look who was in the starting lineup.
Number 31 at forward, 7-1 from Lebanon, Pennsylvania, Sam Bowie.
There wasn't much offense in his first game back, but he protected that rim like he never left.
Joe, Bowie got that. Take your pick. Both Turpin and Bowie were there for that one. That's where he makes the difference. The intimidation defensively inside. 7-1 Sam Bowie.
It was sort of the theme of the season for Bowie. Kentucky had some new scoring weapons since the last time Bowie played. Sophomore high flyer Kenny Walker was an emerging star. And down low, Mel Turpin was already a star. He and Bowie finally forming that twin tower combo that was supposed to be built years ago. And Bowie wasn't going to complain. He was happy to be on the court. And make no mistake, Kentucky was a different team with him out there. Shots were altered. Defenses couldn't collapse on Turpin, and Sam still had some bounce in those legs.
And a perfect lob to Sam Bowie.
There was definitely a lot of rust to shake off, and it was a big adjustment for Bowie as well. Basketball had always just been easy for him, and with so much time away, he got a bit of a reality check this season. But he was still a generational recruit for a reason. That inside presence, soft touch around the hoop, and basketball IQ, that hadn't gone anywhere. And neither had the foul trouble.
It'll be number 4 on Sam Bowie.
This was the most talented Kentucky squad in recent memory. Big Blue got out to a blistering start. That Louisville team was ranked 6th in the nation, and the Cats beat them by 21. Then they won their next 11. However, in conference play, they were unexpectedly inconsistent. They lost bad to Auburn and Florida, both unranked. Then right after, they took down Akeem Olajuwon and 4th-ranked Houston. Bowie's 18 rebounds were a season high, one of the best games of his comeback year. And by the end of the season, Kentucky was fine, ranked 3rd in the nation and 1st in the SEC. In the conference tournament, they knocked off Georgia easily, then narrowly escaped Alabama, setting up a championship matchup with Charles Barkley, Chuck Person, and the Auburn Tigers. Kentucky's size was vital. Auburn had no one to contend with their twin towers. Still, the game came down to the wire. Fortunately for Kentucky, they got the last shot.
Walker with 3 on its way. It's good. Kentucky wins.
An SEC tournament title to go with their SEC regular season title. That was nice, but Kentucky was after a different title. Top-seeded Kentucky started out the tournament with BYU. Brushed the Cougars aside. Next up, it was in-state rival Louisville, a much closer game than the season opener, yet still the same result. On to the Elite Eight for the Wildcats. Illinois was the challenger, and the game was low scoring. As for Bowie, he didn't even take a shot in the first half, so in the second, he just attacked the glass.
Oh, what a follow by Bowie. Again, Bowie with the follow, and he's fouled.
By the end of the game, Bowie had a double-double, and the Wildcats had a trip to the Final Four. Georgetown versus Kentucky, Ewing versus Bowie. The game was a scrappy defensive battle. Both teams were playing physical. Kentucky looked like the intimidator in the beginning, jumping out to a halftime lead.
Oh, nice job by Sam Bowie.
But the second half was all Hoyas, or more so, no Kentucky. One of the greatest collapses of all time ended the Wildcats' title hopes. As for Bowie's comeback season, it was impressive, finishing with averages of about 10.5 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game. 5 years at Kentucky, yet only 3 years on the court. Bowie didn't look exactly like the star he was before the injury, but at the same time, Kentucky had built a strong team without him. They didn't need him to be that star, and they didn't want to chance another setback with his leg. But here we were, a full comeback season in the books with no setbacks. And Bowie had still looked good, even great at times. He certainly hadn't seen his draft stock suffer. Teams placed a premium on the big man, and if healthy, Bowie was one of the best.
Portland selects Sam Bowie, University of Kentucky.
Everybody knows the story. First pick is Hakeem Olajuwon.
Hakeem Olajuwon of the University of Houston.
No one bats an eye. Then Portland rolls the dice on Sam Bowie. Again, as long as he's healthy, this should be a slam dunk. Then third overall is a guard out of North Carolina on his way to the Windy City.
The Chicago Bulls pick Michael Jordan.
But that's not what Portland needed. They were in search of a great big man. They had one years ago in Bill Walton. And style-wise, Bowie and Walton shared a lot of similarities, especially in their passing vision. But injuries had derailed Walton's career, and Portland was really hoping history wouldn't repeat itself.
Well, I went up to Portland and they gave me about a 7-hour physical. They didn't let anything out, so I don't know if that's referring back to the Bill Walton situation. I know he had a stretch fracture, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm 100% sound.
Also, as much as Jordan makes sense in hindsight, they had already taken Clyde Drexler the year before, and they had high expectations for him. Not to mention Jim Paxson. Obviously, he's no Jordan, but at the time he was one of the best 2 guards in the league. Finally, just weeks before the draft, they traded for the high-scoring Kiki Vandeweghe, so the wings were covered. They just had to fill the middle. Bowie at 7'1" with a Swiss Army knife skill set, they couldn't pass that up. And it's not like Portland hadn't done their due diligence. They gave him a pre-draft physical. The team physician felt like the bone healed well, and that Bowie was ready for the NBA grind. And that's what it looked like throughout his rookie year.
Randall's in the lane, blocked by Sam Bowie, and here comes Clyde. Drexler. Bowie.
Bowie flashed plenty of potential. He was still a rim protector.
Blocked by Sam Bowie.
Bowie reacts it. Oh, tremendous block by Bowie.
He was still a lob threat.
Here goes Bowie.
Bowie just goes up and catches it and just drops it in.
Soft hands.
Yes.
And he was just moving well. The legs seemed fine.
Sam Bowie on a breakaway. Oh, good play.
And Portland was probably the best situation for his young career. They had plenty of scoring, so Bowie didn't have a lot of responsibility on that end. And defensively, he just had to use those long arms to alter as many shots as possible. That's where Bowie looked most promising. The rookie averaged nearly 3 blocks per game, landing him among the league leaders in that category. He was also the Blazers' top rebounder, and showed a bit of that Walton-esque passing.
Nice pass from Sam Bowie.
All in all, there was a lot to like.
I think that we've answered the question as to the wisdom of drafting Sam Bowie. You said at the very top that you want to go with the big man, and it looks like they have a good big man.
And outside of Bowie, Drexler was blossoming into something special, and the Blazers had no trouble scoring points. Defense was another story, but by the end of the season they had managed 42 wins, and that was enough for the playoffs. So they were off to Dallas to take on the Mavs. Bowie had been picking up steam late in the year, and the first-round series against the Mavs was some of his best basketball. He had double-digit rebounds in all but 1 game, and kicked off the series with 10 total blocks over the first 2 games. At times, he was too aggressive. Discipline and foul trouble continued to plague the young big man, but he gave the Blazers a huge advantage on the glass. And after 4 games, Portland was unexpectedly moving on. Portland had been one of the league's top-scoring teams all year. Now they had to play the Lakers, and they quickly found out that Showtime was different. Bowie gave a good effort.
Not a good shot by Drexler, but what a play by Bowie.
But trying to contain the league's all-time leading scorer and react to the quick passing of Magic was a challenge he just wasn't ready for, and neither was the rest of the team. After 5 games, Portland's season was over, and Bowie wrapped up his rookie year with averages of about 10 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game. So in comparison to Michael Jordan's rookie season, Bowie was obviously the wrong pick. But if you just look at Bowie's season, it was good, and it showed improvement from start to finish. Over the first half of the year, he was giving you about 8 points and 8 boards a night. From February on, he got a minutes increase, and bumped those numbers up to about 13 points and 9 boards. He wasn't close to Rookie of the Year, but he was named one of the 5 best rookies in the league. And the best part about all of it was that his body held up. 82-game season, and Bowie only missed 6 of them. There was reason to get excited about Portland's future. In year 2, you were looking for more out of Bowie on the offensive end. His aggressiveness had often come into question last year. You're always one of the biggest guys on the court, so why are you settling for the outside shots? Add some moves to your repertoire and go to work down low. And it did look like he was making an effort in year 2. His efficiency dropped, but the fact that he was attempting more shots was a good sign. And what he lacked in power, he made up for in agility. You didn't see many guys his size running the floor like he did.
Valentine all the way, hands to Bowie, he rammed it home.
It was clear Bowie was going to be a project, but there was so much upside. In early January, it all came crashing down. Late in a game against Milwaukee, a teammate fell into Bowie's leg. He was taken off the court in obvious pain. The diagnosis was another hairline fracture to his tibia. And if his healing process at Kentucky was any indication, this was not a good sign. But hold on, only 1 month since he had been stretchered off the court, and he was back on the court, in uniform. Apparently it was a false alarm. The doctors at the hospital saw a line on the x-rays, but they had no way to know if it was new or had already been there. Obviously, Bowie had already fractured that spot, yet the Blazers team doctor changed the diagnosis to a residual defect. In other words, not a new fracture. According to him, it wasn't out of the ordinary to see signs of a past fracture on a long bone like the tibia. So after a few weeks off, Bowie was cleared to play. He lasted 3 games. Bowie shouldn't have been out there at all. His leg was never pain-free, and that defect turned out to be more than just a line on an x-ray. It was another fracture to the same spot. So it was another bone graft for Bowie, followed by an indefinite recovery process. His season was over after 38 games, with the big man finishing with averages of about 12 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game. It was definitely hard to be optimistic about Bowie's recovery, but at least this one started off much better than when he was in college. Even after all the time off at Kentucky, his shin still hadn't really healed properly. 2 of the healing bones had grown together and left him with a huge lump on his shin. After this most recent surgery, the lump was gone and both legs looked the same. And unlike in college, there were no setbacks. Bowie was ready to go come opening night. It was only the 5th game of the season. Bowie had fractured his tibia again, except this time it was his right leg. And this was no fracture. It was the worst version of a clean break, and some of the worst pain he's ever felt. But it sounds like it was only a matter of time. According to him, he had been feeling pain in that leg throughout the preseason. Now it was too late. His season was over, and maybe even his career. Even worse was that Bowie had started strong. In those 5 games, he was averaging about 16 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game. A lot of people thought Sam Bowie had played his last game. A broken leg was almost annual at this point. Why continue to put yourself through that? For Bowie, the thought didn't even cross his mind. Basketball was who he was, and what he wasn't was a quitter. So he began the arduous process of yet another comeback. But this one was especially long. He spent the remainder of the '87 season rehabbing a right leg held together by 3 screws. Come the following season, he was given a clean bill of health. You didn't think it would be that simple. During the preseason, in a pregame shoot-around, Bowie fractures the same leg he just spent a year rehabbing. Would he ever catch a break? Or in his case, not catch one? This time he wasn't so confident he'd be back, but he would at least try. So the '88 season was a wash. But come the fall of '88, to his teammates' surprise, there was Sam Bowie putting in work at training camp. Bowie was looking healed, but he wasn't ready to return. That wouldn't happen until February, 15 months since his last regular season appearance. Portland was cautious. They didn't even consider throwing him a heavy workload, and they didn't need to. The team had really come together over the past couple of years. Clyde Drexler was still there. He was a star. There was Jerome Kersey, a jack of all trades who was drafted the same year as Bowie. Terry Porter was the point guard, one of the league's up-and-coming players. And their new center was Kevin Duckworth, the reigning most improved player. So while Bowie was still a Blazer, the excitement of what he could have been had long since worn off. He still had some moments in his return season. And the fact that he was able to finish out the year on the active list was a bigger accomplishment than any stat line. He even had some really nice showings in Portland's first-round series against the Lakers, a series that the Lakers ended in 3 games. But at least Bowie got to walk off the court on his own, ending his comeback year with averages of about 8.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks per game. It was only a quarter of a season, but it was the healthiest Bowie had been in years, and honestly up to that point, he had probably never been close to 100% in his NBA career. Going back to his pre-draft physical, the team doctors said he was healthy, but Sam knew he wasn't. As he would admit decades later, he felt pain every time they tested his leg, but he told them he felt nothing. And yeah, he's caught some criticism for that, but in that scenario, if you have a life-changing opportunity staring you in the face, who can say they wouldn't have done the same? Returning to the summer of 1989, the Blazers need toughness and rebounding. Bowie is still only 27, so with his value as high as it would ever be, they packaged him to the Nets. Bowie's time in Portland was over. New Jersey had been among the league's worst for the past few seasons. They were rebuilding, and they looked at Bowie as a building block. He'd be joining second-year high flyer Chris Morris, third-year guard Dennis Hobson, and rookie Mookie Blaylock, drafted with the pick received in the Bowie trade. It wasn't much. These Nets weren't going to be turning any heads, but Sam Bowie was.
Oh, the rejection by Sam Bowie.
2, got 3. Wow, what a sequence by Bowie. Oh, what a play by Bowie.
No, he didn't become a superstar overnight, but he stayed on the court. He was a starter, and he was producing.
Bowie takes a 3. Hits it. Bowie hits the 3 from way down.
Well, you just wonder how long Sam Bowie is going to hold up with those broken legs.
That was the question on everyone's mind. Well, for the season, he held up for 68 games, his highest total since his rookie year, while putting up career highs in scoring and rebounding. It wasn't the superstar production most thought Bowie was capable of when drafted, but a double-double from your big man on most nights is something any team would take. It spoke to how talented Bowie actually was. He had basically spent his entire career rehabbing his legs. He had never had a chance to refine his game, and head coach Bill Fitch thought he may only be scratching the surface. And he could take it at his own pace in a low-pressure situation. The Nets weren't in contention for anything except the #1 pick. Their offense was terrible, their defense wasn't much better, and their 17 wins were the least in the league. But for Bowie, it was a success, wrapping up his first year in New Jersey with averages of about 14.5 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game. The Nets really believed in Bowie. A couple weeks before the season ended, they had locked him up long-term. The man who could barely stay on the court had secured his second NBA contract. And while you said it apprehensively, the leg injuries may be a thing of the past. Now New Jersey as a whole had to focus on their future.
And this year we were the worst team in the league, and now we got a chance to make the first choice in the draft this year.
The last place Nets won the draft lottery, and with the first overall pick, they took Derek Coleman. They also brought in veteran 2-guard Reggie Theus. And with a uniform change, it was a new era in New Jersey. Bowie followed up one of the best years of his career with one of his worst starts. He couldn't get anything to fall in November, but he got back on track in the coming months. He was playing better basketball come the new year. Then he went down. Injuries are never good, but it was only a thigh bruise. Those tibias were still holding up. Yet when he eventually returned from injury, he was coming off the bench. Chris Dudley had emerged as a defender and rebounder, 2 areas that Bowie had been struggling with this season. Then Bowie got vocal. The Nets just gave him a big deal, so he expected a bigger role. and that's what he got for the rest of the season. He looked great, putting up some of the best numbers of his career over his final 20 games. The Nets were actually giving fans a reason to be excited. Derek Coleman was living up to the billing. The do-it-all big man was the league's Rookie of the Year. And Mookie Blaylock made a huge jump in year 2. The Nets even brought in another player from Portland midway through the season, Drazen Petrovic. He was a scoring machine off the bench, but New Jersey could rarely put it all together. If they had a high-scoring game, they'd let the other team score more. If they held their opponent to 90 points, then they scored 80. And if they were playing on the road, you might as well chalk up a loss. Talent was no longer an issue in New Jersey, but they needed to learn how to win. And Bowie still figured to be a big part of that growth, after ending the season with averages of about 13 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks per game. It was a bad season in New Jersey, but they were again in the running for the first overall pick. They didn't get it, but they got the next best thing and selected point guard Kenny Anderson second overall. With Mookie Blaylock still on the roster, they had 2 young, capable point guards. Drazen Petrovic was way too good to be coming off the bench. Derek Coleman was one of the best young players in the league. And Chris Morris had been a solid starter for years. And with Sam Bowie rounding out the starting 5, these Nets had no more excuses. One month into the season, and the Nets had dropped 12 of their first 15. Their worst start since acquiring Bowie, but Bowie wasn't to blame.
Sam Bowie, it'll count if it goes, and one. A nice quick hands knocks it loose and creates an opportunity for the Nets to get out and run.
He was playing great over that first month. His second month was even better. Bowie was averaging a double-double, and the Nets were starting to get back on track. Nagging injuries during the second half of the season really slowed his momentum. But overall, it was a career year for the 30-year-old big man. Over 70 games played, a career-high scoring average, and the all-around play that made him such a coveted prospect all those years earlier. The postgame had never looked better.
Bowie shooting over Johnson.
He shot that. See that?
That was a stroke.
The shooting touch helped space the floor.
Sam got the stroke going, doesn't he?
Pointer.
He wasn't the same intimidator on defense, but he looked a lot better than last year.
Gilliam, great block by Bowie.
And with so many great players around him, Sam had to get them involved.
He's got a sleight of hand. Don't go to the carnival with Sam Bowie, huh?
Sure, he wasn't putting up all-star numbers or anything like that, but a few years ago he was considering retirement. Now he was one of the better centers in the league. The improvement was more so due to mental maturity. He wasn't going to focus on what others were saying anymore, or the player picked before Jordan label that followed him everywhere. He was just going to play his game, the good and the bad. And while the Nets had their extremely bad start, they were able to reel it in as the season wore on. Players got healthier, chemistry got stronger. They almost got back to 500, but their 40 wins were still their most in 7 years. And for the first time in 6 years, they were going to the playoffs. Round 1 pitted a battle-tested Cleveland Cavaliers team against a Nets team with barely any playoff experience. Bowie got off to a great start with 16-9 in the series opener.
Counted at one. Pretty move by Sam, and Williams picks up the foul. That's a major league goal, too.
It was a Nets loss, but a game that was kept close all the way through. But after that, Bowie went cold. His counterpart Brad Daugherty was on fire, and these Nets' first foray into the postseason was over pretty quickly, as Bowie closed out the best year of his career with averages of about 15 points, 8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 1.5 blocks per game. A playoff appearance was all management needed to see. They had to capitalize. So they went out and got an NBA champion in a finely tailored suit, handing the coaching reins to Chuck Daly. And the Nets were all in on Kenny Anderson, trading away Blaylock before the season. And for the first time in a while, New Jersey got out to a respectable start. Except Bowie had a lesser role than previous years. He was still the starter, but Daly had pulled back his minutes, and overall just didn't use him as much in the offense. He did all the same things he had always done, it was just less frequent. It was even the most efficient season of his Nets career. But Daly knew who his heavy hitters were, and Bowie was just needed to play a role. Coleman and Petrovic were carrying most of the weight. Anderson was playing great too, until a broken wrist ended his season. That was a huge blow to the Nets. But for a while, they weathered the storm. They had 42 wins with 11 games left in the season. They finished with 43 wins. The collapse didn't ruin their season, but they weren't looking good as they entered a playoff rematch with the Cavs. Unfortunately for Bowie, he didn't spend much time on the court. He struggled through the first 3 games until a foot injury put him on the sideline for the rest of the series. The Nets pushed it the distance, but Cleveland pulled it out in Game 5, and Bowie ended his season with averages of about 9 points, 7 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and 1.5 blocks per game. If there was a silver lining for Sam Bowie about this past season, it was that he played a career-high 79 games, back-to-back seasons with 70-plus games, and overall in his time with New Jersey, Bowie had played in 85% of the games. But at the same time, Bowie wasn't a very physical big man. He was more comfortable on the perimeter than in the paint, and it wasn't uncommon to hear his name and soft in the same sentence. During his years in Detroit, Chuck Daly had always liked strength and physicality in the middle. That wasn't Bowie's game. He could do a lot of things well, but Daly didn't really value those things. So over the summer, the Nets made a deal with the Lakers, and Bowie was on his way to LA. It was a center swap and a preferred playstyle. Bowie's skill set was expected to be a much better fit for the Lakers. More finesse, nice shooting touch, great passing vision. Sounded a lot like the Lakers' current center, Vlade Divac. So Bowie's days as a starter were over. But when Divac needed a breather, Bowie would allow them to play the same kind of game. Showtime was over, but with young guys like Doug Christie and Nick Van Exel, it was the premiere of the Lake Show. Bowie unfortunately wouldn't be in too many episodes. He had been a really impressive backup over the first couple months, but after years of good health, the injuries found him again. In late December, his knee started bothering him. He underwent surgery a couple weeks later, but he never made it back to the court. His first year in LA lasting only 25 games, and seeing the big man average about 9 points, 5 rebounds, and a block per game. Going into the following season, Bowie was healthy, but you weren't expecting much from the 33-year-old. However, for the Lakers, this was the true Lake Show. Van Exel and Divac leading the charge, and some exciting new additions like Cedric Ceballos and rookie swingman Eddie Jones. Bowie wouldn't be getting too involved in the high-octane play, but he was at least staying on the court. At this point, nothing more than a member of the rotation, but it's better than street clothes at the end of the bench. The new-look Lakers under Del Harris were one of the league's biggest surprises, racking up 48 wins and shocking the Sonics in the first round of the playoffs. Round 2 brought the Spurs, who brought an end to LA's season, but the Lakers kept it exciting all the way through, with Bowie wrapping up his 10th NBA season with averages of about 4.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and a block per game. The first half of Sam Bowie's career was spent in the trainer's chair more than it was spent on the court. There was a time when nobody thought he would or should continue his career. But he did, and now he had a decade of NBA experience, and that was enough. Bowie announced his intention to retire near the end of the season, and come September it was official. The once can't-miss prospect was walking away on his own terms, returning to Kentucky, where he would live a calm life focusing on his children and his horses, with Bowie developing an interest in the animals and harness racing during his college years. Sam Bowie really did deserve better. It's easy to call him a bust. It's easy to point to the fact that he hid the extent of his injury leading up to the draft. But he was just a kid who loved playing basketball and wanted to change his family's life. But he deserved better because how he handled it all. It was setback after setback. And as soon as he was given a clean bill of health, it was always snatched away. But he refused to quit and somehow kept smiling through it all. You finally got to see Sam Bowie on the court when he got to the Nets. It's a shame that it wasn't the true Sam Bowie, because what he could do before the injuries was incredible. Running the break himself, hitting the mid-range with ease, delivering passes right on the money, and really exploding to the hoop. And that was just the offensive end. Defensively, he was a whole other beast. His story has become mostly that of the NBA's most famous bust. But his story should be endless adversity met with an iron will, concluded with career redemption. Sam Bowie is an ultimate example of playing the cards he was dealt. And once again, before we end it off, I just want to take a second to shout out channel members. Really appreciate the support in helping making these videos possible. But that's it for today's episode on Sam Bowie. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. If you liked it, check out this one on his draftmate and Blazers teammate, or this one on one of his veteran Nets teammates. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.